Welcome into our In the Money podcast for KeenelandSelect.com. It is Breeders' Cup weekend. It's finally here. Greatest weekend of the year for horse players. I'm Tom Leach along with Jim Goodman, Keeneland's director of Simulcasting, and we're going to take a look at the 5 stakes races on the Friday card out at Santa Anita. And we'll start with the 6th race. And I guess before we start with the Breeders' Cup Marathon, we should let folks know, Jim, that it's going to be a real festive atmosphere out at Keeneland for simulcasting, and you can keep up with football and do all of that by getting in out at Keeneland for the simulcasting, right?
Yeah, we've got still plenty of availability in the Kentucky Lexington room, the equestrian room on Friday and Saturday. It's a great atmosphere. It's kind of like, especially on Saturday, it's kind of like the Derby out here. Everybody's watching. The big screens on out in the infield. We'll have football games up so people can keep up with their football games as well. So it's a great atmosphere to come to races. We have a little bit of a lull time here this week between live racing and Breeders' Cup, but it's not much of a lull, so we're getting ready for that right now.
Well, let's get to the Breeders' Cup Marathon. It is the 6th race on the card at Santa Anita. Pick 6, if you're a pick 6 player, actually starts in race 5, which is a real nice race, the Twilight Derby. The 6th race is the Breeders' Cup Marathon, and always a really difficult handicapping challenge. Not a lot of 1 3/4 form to go on. Where did you land here?
Yeah, when you look at the one of the things I like to do in handicapping is see how many horses have been the distance.
Yeah.
There aren't many. Pool Play has got a couple of on his past performances, but that's about it. And this one's tough. If you're playing a pick 6, you've got a spread here, and I don't know that I narrowed it down as well as I should have, but I got stuck with Blue Skies and Rainbows. Jerry Hollendorfer, the horse didn't run that well at Fresno last out, but if you go back to Barrett's, he had a 96 buyer, wire to wire, in a 1 1/8 race, so the distance isn't going to be a problem for him. I think out of English Channel, he almost kind of should be a turf horse better, but he hasn't. He's only run on the turf 3 times, so he's a better dirt horse. He loves Santa Anita. He's 2 for 7. He's also 6 for 7 in the money. And if you look at the 3 races in March at Santa Anita, he ran a 91, 99, 96 buyer. If he runs back to that, I think he wins this race. The other horse is on the outside, Worldly, coming out of Churchill Downs. I always like Churchill horses shipping to the West Coast. They run against some decent horses here, and this horse ran against Fort Larned and only lost about 3 3/4 lengths in the last out at Churchill on 20th of September. 3 good efforts in a row, but he's more likely to run second. He's got 9 seconds versus 3 lifetime wins in 27 starts. The other horse that is an absolute guess on my part is the Argentinian Ever Rider. Gary Stevens has been riding so well at Santa Anita, it's hard to throw out any horse he's on. He is as hot as any jockey I've seen out there, especially when Mike Smith is not there on a few days in the last couple of weeks. So I'm going to throw Ever Rider in there. I have no idea how he is. The Argentinian races, I don't know how good they are, but just because Gary's on his back, I'm going to throw him in there. So Blue Skies and Rainbows is my very shaky pick in the marathon.
I went a different direction with Cease. And the main reason is that David Jacobson, who's very sharp playing the claiming game in New York, claimed this horse this summer for $100,000. So that's an awful lot of money for a claimer. And last time put the horse in a 7-furlong race, ran pretty well, and seems to have improved for Jacobson. And I'm thinking, okay, claimed him maybe with this spot in mind, and he used that last race to sharpen his speed, so he'll be up there on the pace. Kaleidoscopio passed them all last year, but I think in general, being up close is not a bad thing, because I don't know that there'll be a whole lot that will want to do passing at the end of a 1 3/4. So taking a little stab with Cease here in just a wide open spot. I didn't end up using Blue Skies and Rainbows, but I think you make some very good points there. That's the last one I tossed out of my 4-horse exacta box, so I might try to expand that. But Cease is the pick, and then and my other horses I would use in the exacta box with him, Ever Rider, just because of the things you said. Indian Jones, which had a nice race at a 1.5 miles, 2 starts back at Parks. And then Commander, which is another horse that has some speed and ran in this race last year, ran horribly. So if he ran horribly and yet they're back, makes me think that, okay, something happened last year or he's in really top form this year. And so I'm just going to kind of throw him in there for a stab, too, for a price, because it's just kind of a crazy handicapping challenge. So 2 Cease is my pick, and exacta box of 2, 3, 4, 6. And if you're using multi-race wagers, I'd probably include the Blue Skies and Rainbows and go 5 deep in here on
at
that
least.
ticket. Yeah, at least. Juvenile Turf is next. They'll go a mile on the turf course at Santa Anita, 2-year-olds. And the Euros have won, I think, all of these, and won last year with George Vancouver out at Santa Anita. But I'm going to take an American to end the streak in Bobby's Kitten. I just think he looks so good in the prep for this. Just very powerful win. I know he's named for Bobby Frankel, so they obviously picked him out for that reason to name a good one after Frankel. And this horse has lived up to those aspirations, and I think he's going to be awfully hard to beat in this spot. And then underneath of him in exactas, I would use all Europeans, Giovanni Baldoni, Wilshire Boulevard, Outstrip, maybe even the 12 horse, although it's a horrible post going a mile on the turf. But Bobby's Kitten for me, and I'd probably even look at singling him in multi-race wagers. What about you?
Yeah, I'm with Bobby's Kitten as well, and I'm going to single him in late pick 4. I like the way he drew. The horse that I actually liked in here after I watched the Bourbon Stakes was Bashard, but he drew the 13 hole, so I'm going to toss him. I thought that race got taken off the turf, and I thought he was the best horse in the race that day, got steady the first turn. I really liked him going into this race as an exacta box with Bobby's Kitten, but I'm going to completely toss him from the 13 hole. And I'm going to use the 2 Aidan O'Brien horses, Giovanni Boldini and the
Wilshire Boulevard.
Wilshire Boulevard on the 9 horse in second, and then play the Europeans behind those. I might throw Bashard in just because I think he's that good, and Johnny Velasquez is on him, and that's a big plus. But the 13 hole and the 12 hole hurts Shamshan, so I think this race sets up so well for Bobby's Kitten that I would single him in the big 4.
8th race is the Dirt Mile. It's actually, I think, a mile and 70 yards on the configuration at Santa Anita, but pretty sharp run into that first turn. Where did you go here?
This one's a little tougher. I think I have lost money on Verrazano. I can't figure out if he's going to run a 116 or a 90. But I think that they finally figured out that he's not quite good enough to run a mile and a quarter against the best 3-year-olds. This seems to be an awfully good spot for him. The mile would seem to suit. He's got enough positional speed that he'll be right there. I looked at everything else in the race. The only other horse that I thought I like Golden Sense, but again he drew the 12 hole, and that kind of is tough on this mile run on the dirt track, and I don't like the 12 hole there. The horse that came up second is Fed Biz. Fed Biz has home court advantage. Santa Anita is 3 for 6. Baffert always gets his horses ready for the Breeders' Cup, and the mile distance, he is 3 for 5 at the mile. So I'm going to take Verrazano with Fed Biz. I'm going to say Golden Sense has a shot to get the money, and then maybe Alpha and Pants on Fire to bring up the third spot in the trifecta as a shot.
I was leaning toward Golden Sense until the post position draw. He just seems like he's training well, so I'll still have to use him in tickets because he was going to be my pick to win. But I ended up on Golden Ticket for Kenny McPeak. You look at his last 4 races, he's won 2, and the 2 he lost, the winners were Fort Larned and Mucho Macho Man, who were both in the Classic. So he's kept really good company. I think he's maybe best from a mile to a mile and a 16th. So he turns back from a mile and an 8th race in Grade 1 company last time. And there's a lot of kickback in that track out at Santa Anita, and you see horses coming from behind that are just kind of covered in sand. So down on the inside, I'd prefer him to be a little more out in the middle, but it does come from behind, so maybe they can get him off that inside just a little bit. Golden Ticket's going to be my pick, and I'm going to use him with a couple of 3-year-olds in exactas, Golden Sense and Holy Loot, and those are my top 3 for the mile. And I think this is a race where there's a pretty decent chance you could get a price here because of some of those post positions. Let's go to the Juvenile Fillies Turf at a mile on the grass, and who did you land on here?
Well, watching the Works show on TVG and listening to Mike Welsh, everybody really thinks Clinor is working up a storm for Doug O'Neill, and apparently for a 2-year-old filly looks more like a 3-year-old. I'm gonna believe the hype on Clinor, and I'm gonna take her on top. Borda, the French horse, I mean, all you got to do is look at the races she's been running in France. She's already won $430,000, is 4 for 5, and comes out of a Grade 1 win at 6 furlongs. Should have no trouble with a mile distance. And then my Conquistador, again, we keep talking about post positions, but it seems to me that almost every race, one of the good horses is compromised by post position. And I think you can say that for Sky Painter, who I actually like in the Miss Grillo for Kieran McLaughlin, and my Conquistador ran so well here in the Alcibiades, but she's hung out there in the 14 hole, and I don't think that's a good thing on the turf course. So I'm going to take Clinner here, but I'm going to use Vorda, my Conquistador, just because I've got a home court bias with the horses coming out of Keeneland. I'm also going to throw in Granny McKitten, who Ken Ramsey loved at Belmont, and she went wide on both turns and just didn't show up in the Miss Grillo. So I'm going to take her at a price. There's no way she's going to be 20 to 1 with Ramsey betting on her, but I'm going to say that she's got a shot, and maybe the other Ramsey, Kitten Caboodle, underneath those horses as well.
A little more info on that Ramsey filly. One of the interviews I was doing for the Keeneland YouTube channel during the fall meet, I talked to Mr. Ramsey about some of his Breeders' Cup horses, and he mentioned that she came back with some mucus in her lungs, I think it was. There was some excuse. I think it was that. So maybe basically had a cold that day and didn't run up to her best. So they might have had a little bit of an excuse for a subpar effort that day. I'm going all Euro in here. 3-horse exacta box of Vorda, Crecilium, and Alpha Kira. And my pick to win is going to be the 2 Alpha Kira. This trainer, pretty sharp when he ships over here to run. And I like the fact that they went and got Ryan Moore, a top Euro jock, to ride in this spot. And I heard Nick Luck on a radio show, one of the guys that covers the European circuit, and he was saying that his opinion that they didn't think that this filly had a whole lot of upside as an older horse, that thought she was, maybe peaking early in her career, very precocious, and so they'd be going all out to maximize their potential here as in her 2-year-old year. So Alpha Kira is the pick for me, and use her in exacta box with Vorda and Crecilium, and use all 3 of those in pick 4s, pick 3s. On to the Distaff now, the 10th race on the Friday card. By the way, there is a bet like they have that Oaks Derby double. They have a Distaff and Breeders' Cup Classic daily double that you can play if you care to. Who did you settle on for the Distaff in a small field but a great race?
The only thing I know about Distaff is Street Girl can't win.
Yeah, I think we can have a consensus on that.
Okay, I can make a case for every other horse in here, and I think that the way the race shapes up is going to determine whether even Authenticity has a shot, and she's going to be probably the 5th choice behind the other more famous horses, but she's got a shot for Pletcher. I mean, she ran well in the Zenyatta behind Beholder. She ran well behind Royal Delta at Saratoga. So I think there's 5 horses that have a shot here, but here's where I'm going. It seems to me that Beholder and Princess of Sylmar both hold the aces on Royal Delta right now, even though they're 3-year-olds. Beholder, because she's 5 for 6 at Santa Anita. Princess of Sylmar has proven that she can beat Royal Delta heads up, and she's training as well and running as well as any horse or filly in the country right now. I think it sets up, if Beholder and Royal Delta hook up, Princess of Sylmar wins. If Royal Delta sits back and tries to track off Beholder, Beholder goes wire to wire. So I'm going to use Beholder and Princess of Sylmar. I'm going to take a stand against Royal Delta, which is hard for me to do, but I think the shape of the race favors Beholder slightly, Princess of Sylmar secondarily. So I'm going to take those 2.
I am going down that same path against Royal Delta. I have thought all year that she's just a tick below her best of last year, and that she could be vulnerable. And I'm going to go all in on 3-year-olds here. I think this is a great class of 3-year-old fillies, and I think one of them wins this. So I'm going to do a 3-horse exacta box of Beholder, Princess of Sylmar, and Close Hatches, which if something a little screwy happens with the pace and Royal Delta and Beholder, Close Hatches could be real dangerous at a nice price because nobody's talking about her. So I'm going to do a 3-horse box. My pick's going to be Beholder. I wish she was inside of Royal Delta instead of outside, but I'm going to go ahead and stick with Beholder, training like for Mandela, like she's sitting on a huge race. So I'm going to put my faith in Mandela, take Beholder to win, and a 3-horse exacta box with Princess of Sylmar and close hatches. And I think if I'm doing pick 4s, I'm going to have a bigger ticket. My A horses, if you look at A, B's, and C's, my A's would be Beholder and Princess of Sylmar. I really think one of those two is a good chance is going to win this.
We agree.
Yep, we do. So it probably dooms us, but we'll hope not. We're going to come back and, of course, in our next podcast, take a look at all the Breeders' Cup races on Saturday. Just a huge card and some great wagering opportunities. So for Jim Goodman, this is Tom Leach. We wish you best of luck, whether you're wagering out at Santa Anita or simulcasting at Keeneland or through KeenelandSelect.com. Best of luck for Breeders' Cup.